Today to bring in Ed Goeas, senior advisor to Wisconsin Governor Scott Walker's campaign. Ed, good to see you. Thanks so much for joining us.
Morning.
So the gloves came
pleasure.
off. Donald Trump no longer immune to criticism from his fellow candidates. How did your guy do?
I think Scott did very well. Scott Walker. He came out with a plan to be more aggressive. He showed real substance in terms of the opportunities he had to talk about the record in Wisconsin. In fact, that was one of the dust-ups between him and Trump. But I think what you saw through the night is he was strong, he was steady, he was very aggressive when he presented his case of why he has done what he has done in Wisconsin and what that means for the future of the country.
Certainly, Sandra Smith, no disasters.
No disasters. Actually, one line that the New York Post highlighted from Scott Walker last night was, "We don't need an apprentice in the White House. We have one right now," talking to Donald Trump.
Very clever.
He did come out swinging a little bit. Listen, Marco Rubio shined on foreign policy. Carly Fiorina shined on the economy and foreign policy, for that matter. Leadership in general. I think it was a big night for a lot of those candidates. To be honest with you, going into this, everybody was talking about who had the most to lose, Donald Trump, who had the most to gain. A lot of those that had a lot to gain really came through, Maria.
Jeb Bush was smiling more. I mean, I think he lifted himself a bit.
You know, I think, Jeb, I said yesterday, hey, Jeb, get loud. He got a little louder. He needs to get louder. I think he needs to channel his brother, frankly. I'm not lionizing W, but, I think history has been kind to George W. Bush. And I think some of the energy and some of the being able to relate to people, Jeb needs more of that, and hopefully his advisors can do that.
Yeah.
Ed, I do want to ask, I think Scott Walker started strong yesterday. I forgot he was there, to be frank with you, part of the time. I want to ask, Scott Walker, Governor Walker is this man who's done great things in Wisconsin, and he's someone who's actually rallied people behind him to defeat some very, some very vociferous opponents in the past. What's next?
Well, I think, we're leaving a phase of the campaign where people are window shopping for candidates. In fact, a recent CNN poll done in Iowa, 66% of the people that just responded to one of the candidates said they were still shopping. That's a phase that we will go through where they're now going into the store, they're trying on 2 or 3 things, and they'll get to that final 60 days where they're actually get it down to 1 or 2 things that they want to buy. And I think being steady, having strong organizational muscle is going to be a lot of the key. Last saw that Scott Walker came forward and announced that he had county chairman in all 99 counties in Iowa.
Right.
And that's going to start making a real difference in the campaign. Now, I will say one thing about last night. What was very obvious about last night is the quality of candidates we have. Everyone's trying to pick and choose and say this one did well, this one did not do well. It was not a good night for Donald Trump. But for the rest of the candidates and for the party, it really was a show of very strong candidates, quality candidates that I think is very good for the future of the party.
Yeah, that's true. A number of them stood out. What do you think is going to be the #1 issue for voters? Is it the economy?
It's really going to be 2 things. It's going to be the economy, very much so. We have 72% of Americans believing that the economy may take an economic downturn. But it's also going to be terrorism. There is a real concern over terrorism coming to this country, the impact of ISIS, and that is going to permeate. And then there's a third thing that is very strong, particularly amongst the middle class of this country, which is the American dream is getting further and further away. A question whether it's too late to turn it around.
Yeah.
And
I think the candidate that best espouses that is the one that's going to capture the imagination.
Hey, Ed, real quick, what did you think of Governor Walker's response to Donald Trump when Donald Trump was challenging him so much on the budget? And who was right, who was wrong? I felt like Scott Walker he didn't come back forcefully on Donald Trump.
Well, he did. I think he's being very polite in that sense, that quite frankly, after he made those charges in the beginning.
Not a good time to be polite.
PolitiFact came out and said, in fact, Trump was wrong and Scott Walker was right, and yet he continues to use that. I think the untruthfulness of that also shows in terms of him claiming that he did not go bankrupt 4 times. Well, maybe he didn't, but his companies did.
For sure.
And so this kind of nuanced answer for Trump is the way he tries to wiggle out of these things.
Yeah, and I think people sort of read the lines, actually, in that regard. American people are smart. Ed, good to see you. Thanks so much for stopping by this morning.
Thank you.
We'll
My
see you
pleasure.
soon. Ed Goeas there. Take a look at futures out of the Big Federal Reserve.